Good morning, this is Pauline.
And I'm Howard.
And we start today with the Society News for Friday, the 29th of June. Tuesday, there will be a coffee morning held in support of the Society on Tuesday, the 3rd of July at the Post Office in Knighton. All are welcome from 10:30am till 12 noon. The swimming group are swimming this Tuesday, the 3rd of July in Ryde at the Waterside Pool. The pool is closed to the public whilst the group swims. There are male and female volunteers to help you get in and out of the pool, as well as lifeguards to ensure your safety. To join the Dolphins, please call the Society first to notify us of your swimming ability. Wednesday, the weekly coffee morning will be held at Millbrook House this Wednesday, 4th of July, from 10:30am. The Society Coffee Morning will be joined by the Macular Degeneration Group for their monthly meeting, as well as Jenny Ball, who will be hosting the Macular Society Coffee Morning as part of Macular Week. Fresh cakes will be available. The coffee mornings are not just for blind and partially sighted people. Anybody can come along and have a cup of tea or coffee as well as a piece of cake. We'll also be holding the low vision drop-in between 10:10 and 12 noon on Wednesday the 4th of July. This will be a weekly event to allow you to view and try the low vision equipment we have at the Society without the need for an appointment. The Wednesday social group will be meeting Wednesday the 4th of July at 2pm in Millbrook House. The entertainment this week is guitar and vocals by Jeff Giles. The group lasts approximately 45 minutes, which is then followed by tea or coffee and cake. Thursday. The Thursday social group are meeting on Thursday the 5th of July at Millbrook House. The group meets from 10:30am till 2pm. You can knit or just have a chat. Then later in the afternoon, volunteers come in and read to the group from different topics.
Other news now. The Isle of Wight Fellowship meeting will be held at Bethany Evangelical Church, Union Street, Newport on Saturday 30th of June at 3pm. The speaker this month is Mr. Richard Salmon. There will be hymns, a quiz, story reading and a short Christian message, followed by tea. A collection is taken from which donations are made to the Torch Trust for the Blind. Hymn books and scripture are available in large print and braille. For further details, please contact Jackie Moore on 520797. The RNIB will be delivering another Living with Sight Loss course on Friday 6th of July at the Riverside Centre in Newport. The course runs from 10am till 3:15pm and covers local and national support services, emotional and physical well-being, making the most of your vision, getting out and about safely and confidently, reading and information solutions. The course is for anyone affected by sight loss, including those who have lived with it for a while. Partners, carers and friends are welcome. Refreshments, including a sandwich lunch, are provided. To book a space, please call 0303 123 3933 or email iwslinquiries@rnib.org.uk. Sight for Wight takes pleasure in inviting service users to a Sight for Wight members forum on Wednesday 18th of July from 12 noon till 1:30pm. This will be held at Millbrook House. Please RSVP and send advance questions by 16th of July, either by phone on 522205 or email inquiries@iwsb.org. Local volunteers from the Guide Dogs charity will be visiting a number of venues over the next few months, talking about the work of the charity and how you can be involved. They'll be at Ryde Library on 21st of July and Ventnor Library on 18th of August. All the library venue times will be 10:30am till 2:30pm. You can also find them at the Isle of Wight Community Club Open Day at Park Road in Cowes on August 27th from 12 noon onwards. Do you enjoy the activities and facilities provided by Sight for Wight? Perhaps you've recently attended an activity or event and would like to wax lyrical about it. If so, then Chris Kane would like to hear from you. As part of our promoting well-being and supporting services and activities, we would like to hear your positive feedback, which will be part of a video promoting Sight for Wight. If you have a story you'd like to enthuse about and don't mind being recorded on video, then please contact Chris Kane on 522205 or email admin@iwsb.org.uk.
Now we move on to the scaffolding news, and we are going to list the known footway obstructions for works including scaffolding or hoarding. We're unable to include end dates as many are extended on a week-by-week basis. Also included are tables and chairs permits that have been issued in the past week. And we start with Bay and Ventnor area. There is currently scaffolding at Premier Inn, that's 1 to 9 Esplanade Sandown, 11A and 11B St John's Road Sandown, the Toymaster, 103 High Street Sandown, the scaffold's actually up in Albion Road, 40 Little Stairs Road Shanklin, Shanklin Hotel, Eastmount Road Shanklin, United Reformed Church, High Street Shanklin, 39 Atherley Road Shanklin, the corner of Trinity Road and Madeira Road, Ventnor, 1 Boniface Road and into Trinity Road, Ventnor, Hose Road Dixon, 1 High Street Ventnor, 21 West Street Ventnor, 2 Eleanor House, Grove Road, Ventnor. There are currently skips at 26 South Street, Ventnor, 25 Leeson Road, Ventnor, 5 Hill Street, Sandown, 20 Lamorby Terrace, Lake. There are currently hoardings at Wight City Culver Parade, Sandown, Premier Inn, 1 to 9 Esplanade, Sandown, United Reformed Church, High Street, Shanklin, and new scaffolding is due at Railway Bridge, Avenue Road, Sandown, and that's from the 10th of September.
In the Cowes area, there's currently scaffolding at Sainsbury's, 129 to 130 High Street Cowes, 91 High Street Cowes, 93 High Street Cowes, that's behind the hoarding, 78 Park Road Cowes, 40 Osborne Road East Cowes. There are currently skips at 4 Trafalgar Court, Terminus Road Cowes. There are currently hoardings at 93 High Street Cowes. New scaffolding is due at Carville Court, Terminus Road Cowes from 9th of July, Exmouth House, Bath Road Cowes from 16th of July.
And moving on to the Newport area, there is currently scaffolding at 18 Lugley Street, 46 to 48 Lugley Street, Newport, Domino's, St James's Street, Newport, W.H. Smith, that's 55 to 56 High Street, Newport, Therapy, 2 to 8 Carisbrooke Road, Newport, Wight Mountain Bike Shop, that's in St James's Street, Newport, Unit 2, 32 to 39 High Street, Newport, Hurst and Son in Lugley Street, Newport, the scaffolds up in Lugley Street and Holyrood Street, Age UK, 145 High Street, Newport, and in 17 Key Street, Newport.
In the Ryde area, there's currently scaffolding at Clinton's Cards, High Street Ryde, W.H. Smith, 20 to 21 High Street Ryde, 26 George Street Ryde, 13 Cross Street Ryde, Charcoal Grill, 65A Union Street Ryde, 4 St Michael's Avenue Ryde, Boots, 170 High Street Ryde, Bakehouse, Stane Road, Seaview. There are currently skips at 40 Harding Road Ryde, 33 Surrey Street Ryde, Sand Cove, Pier Road, Seaview, 11 Glendale Close, Wootton.
And finally, in the West Wight area, there is currently scaffolding at Memorial Hall, Avenue Road, Freshwater, Jojo's, School Green Road, Freshwater, and there are currently skips at 8 St Michael's Close, Shelfleet. Now this week's In Touch, this week's episode, Universal Credit and Astronomy for the Blind. 6 existing benefits have been consolidated into universal credit, which the government says will make the transition between welfare and work more simple. But a new report from Thomas Pocklington Trust is highlighting changes which it feels will leave future blind and visually impaired claimants worse off. And Astronomy for the Blind, Portsmouth University's Dr. Nicholas Bonn takes us through the tactile universe. The project conveys the marvels of the universe to children by using 3D models of galaxies. The more intense an area of light, the more raised it is from the surface. And blind physiotherapist Mike Cassidy gives some tips on avoiding a repetitive strain caused by a cane. And this is presented by Peter Wight and produced by Kevin Core.
And now the news from the county press. The main headline today is to do with misery of cuts. More than 700 vulnerable islanders are having their disability benefits squeezed. Some have been left virtually housebound, unable to pay for extra care or activities. As the Isle of Wight Council claws back £934,000 from higher rate payments, while planning to spend £400,000 on new managers, the county press hears of the real misery these changes have caused. Lonely and isolated, Vulnerable islanders have been left virtually housebound or unable to pay for extra care or activities following an increase in care charges. In February, the Isle of Wight Council approved changes to the non-residential care charging policy, which means higher and enhanced disability benefit rates are taken into account during means testing for care home services. At the time, it was predicted the policy would affect 770 islanders who received the higher rate of attendance allowance, disability living allowance and personal independent payments. Those receiving the higher rate usually have more severe and restricting disabilities. They've been charged an extra £27.45 a week or £1,427 a year. This will net the council more than £934,000 a year. Although the council said at the time a hardship fund would be made available, those affected said they were unsure how to access help or even why their charges had been increased. Here are some examples. Zach Hickey. Zach, 23, lives at home with his mother, Amanda Kennedy. He requires full-time care. However, his costs have increased from £49 to £76 a week, leaving him unable to pay for his horse riding and sensory classes. These costs will now fall on his mother. Amanda said she felt he shouldn't have to undergo a financial assessment by the council. She said he shouldn't have to explain where he gets his money. He already gets less than someone on job seekers allowance. Amanda used to care for Zach full time. However, she now works and relies on carers to take care of him during the day and also to give her 1 weekend a month respite. He gets this extra money from the DWP because they assessed he needed it to meet his care needs. So why do the Isle of Wight Council feel they are entitled to it? Why do they get to take it away? I understand they have to fill a hole in their budget, but why are they taking it from such a vulnerable group of people? Tom Buckingham. Tom, 31, lives independently, but the change to his personal budget means he may have to pay to stop attending care in the garden. He used to use his allowance to pay his carers to drive him, costing 40p a mile. However, now he is faced with having to get public transport everywhere because he can't afford this. His mother, Sarah, said Tom found public transport quite stressful, and the increased charges would leave him increasingly housebound and isolated. She said he doesn't understand why he can't continue doing everything he does. Care in the garden is the only social thing he does, and he gets quite aggressive and annoyed because he doesn't understand the financial implications. Sarah said the family would have to step in and foot the bill for new clothes and other necessities he may no longer be able to afford.
And we have two further young people who are going to be affected. 20-year-old Samara Glover lives independently in her own flat in Newport. She suffers from hypoplastic lungs and cystic fibrosis and used to receive full-time care, but her parents began reducing her care to prepare her for the budget cut at the start of June. After that, her weekly payments increased from £102 to £130, and Samara had no choice but to go without care overnight. A few weeks ago, Samara began to feel unwell in the evening and had a temperature because she's unable to regulate her own body temperature. Samara's mother, Fliss, asked a carer to stay with her overnight. However, she was later told by the council the carer may go unpaid because Samara's budget no longer covers overnight care. Fliss said it's going to have a huge impact on these children. If they've not got the money to go out and do things, it will impact on their mental health. Another young person affected is Lucy Dreyer. Both Lucy and her older brother Tom receive personal budgets. However, because Lucy is registered blind, only she will pay the higher care charges as she receives a higher rate of disability living allowance. Lucy's care charges have now increased from £50 a week to £76. The 23 and 27-year-olds live at their home in Newport with parents Caroline and Steve, and both have speech and language difficulties. Caroline said she receives that additional money because she needs it. Why is that taken into account? She would like to move in with her friends, but now this won't be possible. She added families were unclear as to how these new charges were worked out. And now the council changes ensure equality. What the Isle of Wight Council said. Dr Carol Tozer, Director of Adult Social Care, said the council updated its policy in relation to higher rate benefits in line with legislation in the Care Act 2014. These benefits exist to help disabled and terminally ill people meet their costs of care, and the levels of payment are determined by different levels of care needs. The entirety of someone's disability-related expenditure must be taken into account, and any charges levied by adult social care cannot take someone below the nationally prescribed minimum income guarantee. By implementing these changes, the authority ensured equality in how all disability-related benefit income is treated. Councillor Claire Mosdell, Isle of Wight Council Cabinet Member for Adult Social Care and Public Health, added, "The Cabinet had to make some very difficult decisions when setting a fair and legal budget for the coming year. Adult social care, as the largest spending department of the Council, had to contribute to overall savings targets, which were £7.5 million this year, and a further £16.5 million over the next 3 years. Since March, 3 advisory letters have been sent to all individuals who would be affected. These letters explain the changes, the date they would be effective from, and how they could apply for a reassessment, so further disability-related expenditure could be included. It was recognised the changes could have an adverse impact on some people, therefore provision was made to work with those whose personal circumstances changed considerably, resulting in hardship. The letters advised how they could apply if they felt it was necessary. So far, 3 requests have been made for reassessments and none for a hardship payment."
Some more articles now. East Cowes Town Council is to get its own report into the state of the town's umbrella tree. The move follows the publication earlier this year of a report commissioned by Island Roads, which stated the tree was riddled with fungus. The report said the decay was extensive in the tree and because of its structural condition posed a risk to pedestrians. As previously reported, residents battling to save the tree from being felled have had support from Dame Judy Dench, Alan Titchmarsh and Chris Packham. They had an acknowledgement following a letter to Prince Charles. East Cowes Councillor Carl Love said contact suggested by the Prince's office would be used for the Town Council's report.
Fewer new homes were built on the island last year than almost anywhere else in the country. The island was ranked second from bottom with just 24 new build properties completed. According to figures from the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government, 163,250 new builds were completed in England in 2017. Southhousefast.co.uk extracted data from Zoopla using their new homes for sale search tool to analyse figures by county. In London, 8,552 buildings were completed. The island was only ahead of Durham, where 23 new builds were completed last year.
A family has blasted a holiday park as lacking compassion for refusing to refund an elderly couple forced to cancel at short notice. Anthony Nielsen, 77, and his wife Kathleen, 74, couldn't stay at Lynston Chines Holiday Village in Colwell Bay as planned because Mrs. Nielsen suffered an aortic dissection and was airlifted to Southampton General Hospital while they were staying at another Isle of Wight resort the previous week. The couple from High Halstow, Kent, have holidayed on the island nearly every year for more than 50 years and are loyal customers of Lynston Chine. Their family contacted Lynston Chine to ask for a refund to help pay for Mr. Nielsen's travel expenses to visit his wife of 55 years, who remains in a critical condition. A spokesman for Lynston Chine told the county press because the holiday was cancelled just 3 days in advance, they couldn't give a refund. However, they offered another week's accommodation instead. The Nielsen's daughter Julia said, "In such dire circumstances, I wouldn't have minded just getting the deposit back, but we've had nothing back at all." Their granddaughter, Jade Nielsen, said, "I was absolutely disgusted to learn that due to it being too close to their holiday, Lynston Chine would not be able to rent out the lodge, so they wouldn't give us a refund. This is absolutely appalling and shows no compassion at all, especially to their loyal customers of many years." The directors of Lynston Chine Holiday Services, LCHS, said LCHS acts on behalf of members who use its letting services to organise and oversee holiday bookings for their properties. Part of this service is to provide a policy on deposits and payment dates, which also covers cancellations. LCHS and the relevant member were, of course, sympathetic to the Nielsen's crisis, but the booking was cancelled only 3 days before the let was due to start. Any discretion on late cancellations is not that of LCHS, but on this occasion we are able to offer the Nielsen family a free alternative week.
MP for the Isle of Wight, Bob Seeley, is set to join around 50 swimmers to cross the Solent. The Solent Swim, taking place on August the 4th, will raise funds for West Wight Sports and Community Centre. The annual swim is the biggest fundraiser of the year for the charity centre, which receives no funding from local government. Participants will swim across the Solent from Hurst Castle to Colwell Bay. Mr Seeley is swimming the Solent for the second time, but for the first time as MP. Swimmers met up for a sea training session and Mr Seeley said, "I was inspired to swim this as I love swimming and thought, being the island's MP, it seemed an obvious fit for me to be swimming the Solent for a great local cause." West Wight Sports and Community Centre is a really important centre for both sport and the community, and through this event alone it is trying to raise £40,000.
Offences were up at this year's Isle of Wight Festival, but there was a drop in violence compared to last year. This year saw a significant increase in the number of people attending the event, yet crime still remained comparatively low. Initial figures suggest the number of overall offences reported to police during the 4-day festival were 90. Last year, 41 crimes were reported to police, and this compares to 85 the previous year, that's 2016. Further to this, 15 arrests were made this year. Isle of Wight Festival Policing Commander Superintendent Simon Dodd said, "The Isle of Wight Festival has established itself as a relaxed and family-friendly event over decades of operating. We do recognise that there has been an increase in overall crime reports this year. This is largely down to an increase in reported thefts from tents on the first night. However, police and site security were quick to respond to these reports and subsequently 2 suspects were arrested. We are confident this proactive joint work leads to the prevention of further offending of this type for the remainder of the event. Reports of violent offences were down from the previous year, which we're pleased to see. Drug offences remained low and a number of significant arrests were made. In addition, drug seizures and the use of amnesty bins proved a success, with £8,351 worth of drugs being removed from the site, compared to £2,202 in 2017. A detailed policing operation was implemented to safeguard everyone attending the event and the community in the busiest week of the year for the Isle of Wight.
A mum of 3 who was promised a procedure to reduce the chronic back pain that leaves her bedridden has received a heartbreaking letter telling her it is cancelled. Faye Teal, who has suffered from degenerative disc disease, when normal changes in the discs of your spine cause pain, for 10 years, said the letter blamed a lack of funding for the cancellation. She'd been waiting for a quadruple epidural that could relieve her pain for about 4 months while doctors searched for an alternative long-term treatment. "I was absolutely gutted," said the 37-year-old. "I was looking forward to being pain-free and getting my life back. I feel like every time I see light at the end of the tunnel, a wall whacks me in the face." After the pain got worse in February, Faye was put as a priority on the cancellation list. In March, she was admitted to hospital for pain relief and an emergency MRI scan. "It's been awful. I'm on bed rest. I can only be up and about for a few hours a day. I can't work or look after my kids without help." 2 of Faye's 3 children, aged between 7 and 14, have learning difficulties. Her eldest is able to help out around the house, and Faye, who is single, is also supported by her brother. It's really unsettled them. My eldest is understanding, but my youngest 2, who both struggle anyway, just don't understand. It's really, really hard. Faye of Ryde said she'd done everything she was advised and kept all pressure off the leg. Still in severe pain and waiting an appointment to see her consultant, she rang the hospital to be told her doctor was away until July the 12th. She's been told to rest and take pain relief. What the hell am I supposed to do? I'm sick and tired of waiting around to live a normal life. I'm only 37. Nikki Turner, Director of Acute Services at Isle of Wight NHS Trust, said, "In February, the Isle of Wight Clinical Commissioning Group introduced new rules around the funding of some procedures, which limited the availability of some procedures deemed on clinical advice to be of limited benefit. We're still in the process of implementing these new rules and are reviewing the arrangements for Ms Teal. However, we cannot guarantee this will change the position. The leaflet sent to Ms Teal explains about the new rules and the options to make further representations if Ms Teal has concerns."
Trading Standards bosses have warned home buyers to be on their guard against a scam that could destroy their dreams. Scammers are hacking solicitors' accounts and sending emails with fake bank account details on them, so when potential homeowners transfer the deposit to their solicitors, it instead goes straight to the scammer's bank account. In one case in London, a marketing professional was scammed out of £60,000 by cyber criminals. Trading Standards staff on the Isle of Wight have had reports of residents being scammed.
A Christian farm home project for young people could be built in Knighton. As part of the Stonelands project, young people aged 18 to 25 would receive mentoring and support while working outdoors and developing new skills at the Undercliff Drive site. A planning application has been submitted to the Isle of Wight Council by Josh Osborne. The time people would spend at Stonelands would vary from a week to a year depending on their needs. The proposed land currently has a number of outbuildings, including a disused nursery that has been closed for more than 30 years, that would be brought back into use. A chalet-style house would be built to accommodate Mr. Osborne, his family, and young people staying there. The building has been designed with a simple rustic appearance to fit in with the surrounding landscape. It would be constructed using locally sourced materials where possible. The building would be built to function off-grid with wind turbines and solar panels to provide hot water. Sustained management of the 7-acre woodland would be used to provide wood for heating and cooking. Vegetables sold by the project would cover living costs and wooden crafts sold to boost income. A veg box scheme would also feature in future expansion plans. Although the site is rural, Mr. Osborne stressed it was not isolated, with people able to walk to Knighton. According to the application, Stonelands is intended to reach out to young people who are lacking direction in life and seeking help to find guidance and a sense of purpose, to those who wish to spend a period of time developing their faith. The closing date for comments is July the 7th.
The Isle of Wight became Celebrity Island as rock stars, sports stars and film stars flocked to our shores. The Isle of Wight Festival is one of the most prestigious festivals in the UK, so you'd expect a bit of glitz and glamour to go with the rock and roll vibes. And that's exactly what happened when Hollywood star Colin Firth turned up at the Hard Rock stage to watch his son's band Wednesday. Regulars at In Shape Gym in Cowes, who skipped their Sunday workout in favour of the festival, missed a celebrity appearance. 3 members of the Killers turned up to work out for an hour before their headline slot. Gym manager Kim Backshaw said the place had been given a recce, so she wondered if someone famous was going to drop in. She said the Killers work out 6 days a week and always look for a small independent gym. They were really nice, but it was pretty surreal. Former England striker Peter Crouch was also at the festival, moshing away in the crowd to headliners Kasabian. Meanwhile, sports stars Andrew Freddie Flintoff and Jamie Redknapp visited the island last Friday to film A League of Their Own. The cricketer, who was on board a boat in Cowes with the show's stars, posted a picture on Instagram with the caption, "Not a bad day out." Andrew and footballer Jamie were filming the Sky One sports show with actor Tom Davis and comedian Romesh Rangathan.
A century ago, the last Tsar and other members of the Romanov royal family were murdered during the Russian Revolution. However, a few years before, in 1909, Tsar Nicholas and his family were among the royals who visited the island for Kells Week and a parade of Britain's Royal Naval Fleet in the Solent. The Tsar, cousin to both George V and Kaiser Wilhelm of Germany, also visited Barton Manor in East Cowes. He'd also been a naval cadet at the then Royal Naval College at Osborne House. The Tsar's family included the Tsarina Alexandra, the couple's 4 daughters and their young son Alexei, who suffered from haemophilia, a genetic condition that prevents the blood clotting. Now, a century after their deaths, surviving descendants of the Romanov family are coming to East Cowes in July to dedicate a memorial which marks their link with the town. From July the 6th until July the 8th, East Cowes will remember the Romanovs with an exhibition at Barton Manor and a choir specially flown in from Minsk, Belarus. A monument, a gift to the people of East Cowes, is being sited on the Jubilee Recreation Ground, East Cowes, and tells the story of East Cowes' historical importance in the world. Saint Elizabeth, the Tsar's sister-in-law, was also a regular visitor to East Cowes. The Romanov and Grand Duchess exhibition at Barton Manor will include artefacts from the lives and times of the imperial royal family, which have been flown to East Cowes from across Europe. The Romanoff concert takes place on July the 6th at East Cowes Town Hall at 7:30 p.m. It features music from the Sisters of the St Elizabeth Convent Choir from Minsk and the Bloomsbury Quartet, and tickets are available from East Cowes Heritage Centre and Flick's Hair Salon.
Calls have been made for Isle of Wight Council boss John Metcalfe to drop plans for a £400,000 management shakeout, a move branded an insult to council taxpayers. As reported, Chief Executive Mr Metcalfe has announced he will use the council's transformation budget to bolster County Hall's senior management team, appointing an assistant chief executive on £92,000 a year, strategic managers for highways and transportation and planning and infrastructure who will be paid £90,000, and other managers. He's been asked to reconsider his plans by two Isle of Wight councillors who branded the expensive restructure misguided and entirely inappropriate given public services have been slashed and council tax increased. Independent Labour councillor Jeff Brodie and Independent Green councillor Michael Lilly have submitted a motion to next month's council meeting calling on the authority to acknowledge many of its services have seen significant cuts and indeed curtailment over the past 7 years, with hundreds of staff losing their often lowly paid jobs. They said it was unlikely the Conservative administration would welcome a debate, as is often the case with controversial proposals, but said they were determined to voice their opposition and refused to take part in the appointments process. Councillor Brodie said, "This restructure is an insult to all islanders who've lost vital services in recent years and to all those former staff members who were made redundant, many of them very low paid. We cannot understand how the Chief Executive can justify this or why the allegedly ruling Conservatives are allowing it to happen. In our discussions, Michael and I have agreed we will not take our place on the Appointments Committee for an Assistant Chief Executive. This has been convened with unseemly haste for Monday after the Chief Executive's unaccountable decision just 2 weeks beforehand. It should be postponed until full Council has had the opportunity to consider the restructure." Councillor Lilly said spending £400,000 on wage rises for the bosses was utter madness. The next Council meeting is due to be held on Wednesday, July the 18th.
Parents and politicians have voiced their disappointment following the announcement that the Isle of Wight Studio School will close next summer. Despite protests from parents, the Department for Education said the school was financially unsustainable. The recent Ofsted report, where the school was found to require improvement, was also taken into account. Parents Amy Lockwood and Sharon Lake, who began the campaign to save the school, said the decision was disappointing but not unexpected. They said the school had been severely let down over the past few weeks by people in power. They added there has been a total lack of transparency since they made the decision to identify a multi-academy trust at the end of 2016. Discussions have been held behind closed doors without involving parents, public and the community in any meaningful way. For all its faults, AET did have the common decency to establish its own listening period for parents and the community to be alerted to possible issues and to consider options for Sandown Bay Academy before going to the DFE. The Inspire Academy Trust has not provided us with this opportunity, choosing instead to go straight to a route for closure. This has left parents and supporters with very little time to come to terms with the announcement of the proposal. The Ofsted report has not been a surprise to us. Parliamentary spokesperson for the Isle of Wight Labour Party, Julian Critchley, also said it was a sad day for children and teachers at the school. He said this government has messed around with state schools in this country for 8 long years and has cut real-term funding year on year to the extent we now have a genuine crisis in education. Cabinet Member for Children's Services, Councillor Paul Brading, said, "I fully understand why the Minister has come to this decision. While I am supportive of providing high-quality technical education on the island, the studio school has only managed to attract small numbers of students."
An island seafood platter has won Christ the King College students the southern final of the 2018 Create and Cook competition. Anya Perscott-Edgerton, 13, and Lucia Toms, 14, fought off stiff competition from their Sussex and Hampshire rivals with a stunning seafood platter showing off the island's catch. Anya and Lucia were praised for their skill, their professionalism in the kitchen, and their understanding of where their ingredients came from. Their flatbread starter showcased Isle of Wight tomatoes and garlic. Their Thai crab cakes featured Ventnor crab, and their tartar sauce was made with oil of white rapeseed oil. Min Reisman from competition organisers Fit to Cook Food Education said, Anya and Lucha's crab cakes were stunning, and their prawn tacos, place goujons and calamari had really interesting flavours. What the judges liked best was that these young cooks went the extra mile, showing skill by cleaning their local squid, filleting the plaice and shelling the prawns. Anya and Lucha, who won cookbooks and local produce, said winning was totally unexpected. Anya and Lucha won the Fit to Cook trophy, a goodie bag of cookbooks and local produce to take home, and will have their recipes professionally styled and photographed on websites and in magazines.
Bryston Viaduct has been reopened following repair works. The historic military road structure, built in the 1860s, was restored and strengthened by Island Roads. It has been rebuilt using more than 10,000 bricks, resurfaced and repointed. Sections of brickwork have been replaced and drainage features added. Island Roads worked with the Isle of Wight Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty to ensure the design was in keeping with the history of the bridge. Following the works, which took a little over 4 months and were completed on schedule, despite the beast from the east in February and Storm Irma in March, the bridge reopened on Thursday. Island Road staff were joined by Isle of Wight Council Cabinet Member for Transport, Councillor Ian Ward, and Ward Member Councillor Steve Hastings, who cut the ribbon. Jason Porter, the chartered civil engineer who managed the project, said, "We'd like to thank people for their patience while we carried out this important project, especially nearby residents and businesses, including Grange Farm and Isle of Wight Pearl, as inevitably there was some disruption due to the scale of the works. The viaduct is a very impressive structure, and carrying out the necessary works was not without its challenges due to its location, which is very exposed because of its proximity to the coast. The works we've carried out, although possibly not appreciated by road users, as the majority of repairs cannot be seen from the highway, is very important and will make sure the historic structure is preserved for years to come."
MP Bob Seeley has asked the Isle of Wight Council to honour its election pledge to manage roadside grass verges more sensitively. In a letter to Council leader Councillor Dave Stewart, Mr Seeley said around 90% of wildflower meadows had been lost since the Second World War, and it was vital the Council did all it could to encourage wildlife that had lost this habitat. Mr Seeley said other authorities, such as Devon County Council, are already undertaking sensitive grass verge cutting with positive results. Councillor Stewart said Bob is rightly very energised about the environment, and we're as keen as anyone to preserve this unique feature. However, it's even more important to maintain road safety, so although we think alike with the MP, we have to maintain it. Councillor Stewart said the Council was already looking at ways to preserve wildflowers along the roadside. We are in discussions with our contractor Island Roads about how our strategy could change, he said.
The number of electric vehicles registered on the Isle of Wight increased last year by almost 50%. Between January and March 2017, there were 122 electric vehicles on the island. By March this year, the figure had risen to 182, according to the Department for Transport. Back in 2013, there were just 7 electric cars on the island. Peterborough had the highest proportion of plug-in vehicles of any UK local authority at 2,401. The island's first electric taxi was unveiled last year with e-Taxi IW, and in March a new electric vehicle was loaned to Isle of Wight Council to be used as a pool car. The council said it will consider more electric and hybrid cars for future replacement of pool cars. County Hall now has 6 charging bays for electric cars. Over the past few years, manufacturers have increased the range of their vehicles and prices have lowered, helping fuel the rise in environmentally friendly vehicles. The latest Nissan Leaf, the UK's most popular entirely electric car, can now travel 235 miles before it needs to be recharged, 80 miles more than the previous version. Last month, BP announced it would follow Shell and install charging points at its petrol stations. Dyson has also said it plans to release an electric car by 2020. One advantage electric car users have over other vehicles is that they do not have to pay road tax, as they do not release any emissions. Electricity is also far cheaper than petrol and diesel. However, the cars are expensive, with a typical new electric car costing more than £20,000. Plug-in vehicles still make up a tiny proportion of the cars on the island's roads.
A dangerous driver who smashed his car into a police van has been banned from the roads. Samuel Bone, 25, of New Road, Brading, was branded incredibly stupid by a Crown Court judge after causing more than £3,000 worth of damage to the police vehicle. He admitted one offence of dangerous driving and one of criminal damage when he appeared at the Isle of Wight Crown Court. He also admitted failing to give his name and address to police and failing to stop when requested to. The court heard Bone was seen leaving Newport's Fever nightclub and walking to his BMW at around 3:30 a.m. on November 5th last year by door staff who believed he'd been drinking. They called the police, who parked nearby to wait for him, said Rod Blaine, prosecuting. Bone drove away, swiftly followed by the waiting police car with its blue lights flashing. As a police van pulled in front of him at Stapler's, Bone's car struck the van. Representing Bone, Rebecca Austin said a pre-sentence report drawn up by the probation service was very positive. Her client had also been read the riot act about his behaviour by his mother and grandmother. Bone was given a 9-month jail term, suspended for 2 years, and disqualified from driving for 18 months. He was also ordered to take an extensive retest and pay £3,127 in compensation for the damage to the van. Recorder Malcolm Gibney said, "Your behaviour was incredibly stupid."
A Second World War veteran who helped liberate one of the first cottages on D-Day has been awarded the Civilian Honour of Ranville. Daniel Lyons, 93, of Newport Road, Northwood, was part of the airborne division that parachuted from a plane over occupied France when he was just 19. Landing at a cottage in Ranville, he saw a wounded man on the table and offered a little girl some chocolate. She refused, as she was petrified of soldiers. Mr. Lyons' son-in-law put details of this story out and heard back from the little girl's daughter, who had heard the same story throughout her life. A few weeks ago, Mr. Lyons was invited back to visit the family in Ranville. They organised a visit to the cottage and a tour around the chateau where he had set up headquarters 74 years ago. In the afternoon, the town awarded him the Civilian Honour of Ranville for assistance on D-Day. Terry Glynn, Mr. Lyons' son-in-law, said he was very emotional and very moved by it all. He's got a stiff upper lip, but you could see he was extremely happy to revisit and shocked by the honour.
Future scientists and astronauts could be being nurtured at Broadley Primary School thanks to a very special science teacher. Claire Loizos has scooped a national award that is only awarded to a handful of teachers across the country each year. Mrs. Loizos, Key Stage 2 lead teacher and science specialist, was awarded a Primary Science Teacher Award, PSTA, endorsed by the Ogden Trust at the Primary Science Teaching Trust Awards. The accolade recognises Mrs. Loizos' innovation and energy in the classroom and her impact on pupils, parents and fellow teachers. She was only one of 9 award winners for 2017 and received £1,000 prize money plus £500 for the school to spend on science. Prize winners join the Primary Science Teacher College as a fellow, which enables them to access funding in excess of £500,000 a year to develop new projects, undertake professional development and share best practice. Mrs. Loizos plans to benefit primary science teaching across the island by inviting other schools to Broadley strengthen STEM teaching for all island schools. Broadley head teacher Sharon Freely said, "I'm delighted Mrs. Loizos' enthusiasm, hard work and passion for teaching has been recognised. She makes a real difference to the lives of all the children she teaches. I'm sure we will hear of a scientist or astronaut in the future who has been taught by her."
And it's goodbye from Pauline.
And goodbye, best wishes from Howard.
So here we are again for What's On in the county press,
Right.
Weekender. My name is Sarah.
And my name's Lester.
Right, we'll start with the first letter, the letter of the week. So this is, the headline is Wonderful Village. This is from Joan Hill of Gurnard. I've lived in Gurnard since 1959. It's a happy village and folk are clamouring to live here. Just recently, there have been rumblings. It seems there's a body of officials who are bulldozing and bullying to stop the happy atmosphere in this lovely place. We have a delightful young couple who care so much for their village they actually bought a field in 2007 for the enjoyment of the people. We have the May Queen festivities, harvest festivals, dog walking, recreation and games, anything and everything has been carefully considered and granted. Hundreds of pounds have been raised for many charities such as the Scouts, All Saints Church, etc. Perhaps you've come into Gurnard to support the events and enjoyed the opportunity of meeting up with us all. It's a day when the words of Louis Armstrong come to mind. Friends shaking hands saying, "How do you do?" They're really saying, "I love you." This is honestly the atmosphere of the field. You should come along and try it. Oh, but now you can't ever again. It's been stopped. Is it the parish council or the Isle of Wight council? They have declared the field a green space with no consultation, not even an announcement. They're destroying the community. We all run very busy lives, hardly having time to spend greeting people as we like. These days, on the field, are very special. The village is packed with people from Gurnard and far and wide, and we have lots of fun and laughter. How can anyone with a conscience do this in this age of worry and turmoil to our lovely village? I'm sure the young couple must be devastated and feel penalised for their generosity and absolutely wonderful community spirit. We, the villagers, are shocked how many young people do you know who have done so much for the place they live. There is to be a planning committee meeting in the very near future. Let's see the village hall packed with protesters and show them how much Gurnard means to them.
And a short letter here from David Goatley, Kennington in Oxford, and he's interested in tracing relatives. Tracing relatives. I'm trying to trace my relatives on the Isle of Wight. My father's uncle was Fred Goatley, the designer of the Goatley canoe used by the Cockleshall heroes. He used to work for Sanders Row. I would be very grateful for any help or suggestions from readers.
There's a letter from A. Vincent of Ryde. I'm all for the Isle of Wight festival. Be fair, it brings revenue to the island and it's good fun for the festival goers. So why does Red Funnel take it out on residents of the island? It's good they sponsor the festival, but why do they punish islanders by putting up ferry prices? One can understand raised prices for visitors to the festival, but surely islanders who want to be off the island when the festival is in full swing should at the least be given a discount. My daughter works part-time and had to pay an inflated amount she could ill afford to go to the mainland to see friends on the festival weekend. So who reaps the benefits? Red Funnel and festival organisers? Makes me so mad. We couldn't even use our discount code, for heaven's sake.
Missed opportunities from Molly Dodd, Newport. I have just followed the revellers along Newport Quay. For once the quay looked happy with boats and people laughing and chatting. Some were even resting under the cherry tree on the green, but unfortunately that was all they could do before their long walk back up to Fairley Road to the festival ground. Why, oh why, couldn't the Riverside Cafe be open with its sun umbrellas and welcoming drinks and burgers? Doesn't it need more income? I thought the island needed and depended on its tourist trade. There's a big notice regarding bikes for hire, again locked up. I bet a few people would have been delighted to have a bike ride instead of Shank's pony all the way to the festival ground. Whoever runs the Riverside Centre hasn't got their eye on the ball. Every little helps, as the saying goes. I hate to see wasted opportunities.
A letter from Nip Wade of St Helens. The Bembridge Harbour Trust, the BHT, was formed when Barry Blatch owned the harbour, with the aim to buy it if it ever came onto the market. It cost £500 to become a member of the trust, so it became a very select group who wanted some say in the running of the harbour. Unfortunately for them, when the harbour came on the market, they didn't have enough funds to buy it, and it was purchased by the Thorpes, who've done a very good job with it. There are now more boats using the harbour than ever before, and events are held there to encourage more visitors, which is just what the local St Helens pub and last remaining village shop need. They've also done a considerable amount of dredging to improve the facilities there. I've been going in and out of the harbour in the same boat for over 70 years. The hours before and after high water that I can get to and from St Helens Quay have not changed in all that time. I believe it's about time the lobbying group, the BHT, has now become got off the backs of the current owners and let them continue the good work they've been doing.
Most unsettling. Hope I've got this lady's surname right. It's from Wilhelmina Haganor, Bembridge. Aren't I the lucky one? After almost 2 years of uncertainty, Theresa May and her Tory party have finally decided that EU citizens like me can stay. Jolly, jolly. So now I can go cap in hand with my little form and no less than £65 to ask for settled status. And here was I thinking that I was settled after having lived in this country for almost 27 years, paid my taxes for exactly that same period, supported British charities and made lots of British friends. However, the powers that be feel I'm not. Now that's what I call unsettling.
A letter from W.H. Bromwich in Cowes. Beryl Daniels is partially correct when she refers to rich mainlanders with second homes on the Isle of Wight not using the NHS. The Isle of Wight NHS Trust controlling elite will ensure the island has credible A&E and ITU facilities. Indeed, both are currently receiving £1 million makeovers. Regardless of status, with no private hospital on the island, in an emergency, your first port of call will be St Mary's. Once stabilised, the rich and privileged will no doubt be whisked off to private hospitals on the mainland. As for the rest of us, well, let's simply pray St Mary's has been stockpiling plenty of paracetamol, because there will be precious little left on the Isle of Wight soon.
Still questions over the harbour, from Jeremy Gully, trustees of Bembridge Harbour Trust. The fact an independent national body, GMB, is calling on the government to intervene in Bembridge Harbour indicates the seriousness of the situation, not a matter of difference of opinion, as readers might imply. Bembridge Harbour Trust, BHT, wishes to clarify some points raised. 1. The charity, BHT, is governed by 6 trustees on behalf of 175 members of the harbour community. As BHT's chair, Jeremy Gully, acts as their spokesman. 2. Whether the harbour is in private or public ownership is not the issue here. Our overarching aim is to see the harbour thrive. We hold any owner to account as a statutory authority empowered by Act of Parliament and thereby entrusted to manage in the interest of the community. 3. BHT does not mislead. We rely on evidence and professional advice. We are always happy to point people to our sources on request, as we did when approached by the GMB. 4. The Harbour Regeneration Plan is a development scheme set out as benefiting the harbour, when, as Mr Thorpe's figures, the harbour would see additional costs, the major beneficiary being a development company. And number 5, our fact-checking of the developer's submission to the IW Council Planning Department, prompted by EHT to commission a legal report raising 9 serious questions that the published accounts do not answer. The £1 houseboat plot is just one of those. And number 6, finally, concerns were raised by the planning committee members about the intercompany relationships.
Here's a letter from Derek Bean of Bembridge. We need another tourist map. I have found visitors to the island a surprise. We have a lot more of interest to offer than just sand, ice cream and caravans. As a committee member, I act as steward when we have art exhibitions. At these, I have visitors expressing their surprise at the quality of pictures, the number of galleries and exhibitions on the island, saying they thought this only went on in Cornwall and that the island was just sand and caravans. At the Heritage Society, we find visitors are also amazed at the original design and development work carried out on the island in the past 100 years with boats, armaments, aircraft, hovercraft, etc., which are now used and accepted worldwide. Visitors are particularly amazed at the work carried out on the island during the Second World War, and especially the work on the pipeline under the ocean, Pluto. I had 2 gentlemen on one occasion who were in the army during the war and posted down at Shanklin to work on the Pluto system in the basement of the Grand Hotel. They had just visited it to see what they felt must now be a museum, but found nothing. They were disappointed and commented that solving the Enigma code was equally as important to the war effort, and there have been a museum and a film has been made. We have an attraction map which is ideal for young families, but what we also need is something that focuses on people who would appreciate learning about recent island history, art and development that has and is going on. We need a map listing subjects of special interest and their locations, along with the telephone number and website. The visitor could then just select the subject of interest and follow the routes and locations.
Keep eye out on New Ferry, and this comes from Graham Lascelles in Wootton. Give someone a comfortable chair, and what will they do? I was somewhat perturbed by the picture showing 2 Wight Link captains seated in their armchairs while driving their new ferry, Victoria of Wight. They seem to be surrounded by technology. Yet the most sophisticated equipment on the bridge, by an order of magnitude, is the human eyeball. What exactly can they see from their comfortable perch? Can they see an approaching windsurfer, someone fishing from a canoe, a dinghy, or indeed anything closer than 500 metres or wherever their line of sight meets the horizon? They will say everything's approved by the Marine and Coast Guard Agency. Well, I'm sorry to report that, as in the words of Shania Twain, that doesn't impress me much. A few years ago, Wight Link was officially reminded by the Queen's Harbour Master, Portsmouth, to obey the rule of the road after a close-quarter incident with my boat. You can't even do that if you can't see the other vessel. I never did get an apology. I understand that they do a difficult job in a crowded Solent, which, when driving a ferry, is, in my humble opinion, no place for sitting down on the job. I sincerely wish them well, but what goes around comes around, guys.
Now, over to looking back 100 years ago, June the 29th, 1918. A sergeant based in Holland wrote to the county press and commented how much he enjoyed receiving the paper each week. Sergeant Shepherd of Newport said, "For 3 years and 5 months in Germany, under the most miserable surroundings, Your paper made it seem like old times again. My wife manages to send me a copy every week. It's great to know the same old clubs are carrying on at home. Also, 100 years ago, a 9-year-old boy was knocked from his bike in a very serious accident in Apps Heath. Arthur Morris, who was cycling to Wroxall, as he'd done every day for 4 years, was hit by a motor that came round a very sharp corner. Fortunately, Arthur was able to grab onto the front of the car and travel with it, but the bicycle was crushed.
And this was 75 years ago, on June the 26th, 1943. 5 lucky babies were presented with saving certificates from the District Council. They were each born in East Cowes during the Wings for Victory week. At a town presentation, each baby was brought up to the front and presented with the certificates by Mr. and Mrs. Petty of the Savings Group. And another item. Ethel M. Willard, originally of Freshwater, set a fine example of patriotism at the age of 70. While living in the USA, Mrs. Willard left retirement and joined Bosing Aircrafts Company as a wartime worker. She decided she must do something to help the Allies' war effort, so she worked 8 hours a day in the factory.
50 years ago, this is about Waverley Caravan Park in East Cowes, it lost the battle against 4 holidaymakers who refused to stay at the site. They said the site had unsatisfactory conditions. But the owner dismissed these and took the holidaymakers to court over the argued costs. The judge ruled the state of the caravans was unacceptable, and the 4 holidaymakers were not forced to pay. Also 50 years ago, the old mill at the St Helens and Bembridge Harbour became a private house for the first time. 1 year previously, it was described as of outstanding scenic beauty, but a harsh winter had collapsed the roof. Plans were set in motion for the mill to become a private house.
25 years ago, on June the 25th, 1993, crude religious slogans, dog excrement and cow slurry were daubed on the walls of the Newport Centre of the Jehovah's Witnesses. The vandalism to the Kingdom Hall in Petticoat Lane cost £250. Chairman of the Kingdom Hall, John Winter, said, "It is sad we live in a society where these things happen." And second item. A Ventnam man's joy at hearing his stolen car had been found turned to misery when he discovered the callous thieves had stolen the radio and pushed the vehicle over cliffs. Philip Treadwell of High Street, Ventnor, had discovered the car was missing 2 days earlier. He said, "To do this sort of thing is completely senseless. The car was a write-off."
This is 10 years ago. The island was pioneering a new treatment for painful varicose veins, which dramatically cut recovery times. St Mary's Hospital began a new procedure. The biggest advantage is patients are avoiding a general anaesthetic and recovery seems to be a lot quicker, said vascular surgeon Stephen Baxter. Also 10 years ago, 2 young island ambassadors were heading stateside to attend the inauguration of Barack Obama. Ian Pethick, aged 17, and Rachel Hansford, aged 18, so impressed the organisers of the Global Young Leaders Conference the year before, they were invited back to attend the ceremony. Rachel said, "If Hillary Clinton was still in the race, I'd have liked her to win to become the first female president."
And now we move on to Wight memories. Were they the good old days? That's the question asked here. Brian Greening recalls the good and bad days of the 1950s. As we get older, we tend to reminisce about the days of our youth often, however, like those who served in the two world wars, only recalling the good things of that period. Forget the fact you often went to school with holes in your socks and shoes, wearing a brother's or sister's hand-me-down clothes, and had chicken for dinner just once a year. Better to recall those Saturday morning matinees at the cinema, taking a train journey from Sandown or Shankling to spend a day at the beach, or visiting Arnold's Fair when it arrived in town at carnival time. I'm even old enough to remember when the floating bridge ran a regular service at 10-minute intervals. Now I know I am getting old. The 50s were my growing up years. It was a time when a few local shops seemed to have been there forever. The death was announced in 1951 of Frank Witcher, a man who was born over the premises of his father's clothing shop in Node Hill in 1865. Snellgrove's was another Node Hill shop where you went for paint and decorating items, and this was the year it celebrated its centenary. One of his old ledgers illustrated the way things had changed. The cost of decorating a staircase with 18 rolls of paper has risen from just under £2 in 1851 to £30 in 1951. The new Technical College at Honeyhill, Newport, opened that year, the building having cost around £200,000, while the county press reported scouts would soon be touring the island for their annual Bob a Jog week. It was announced at Whitsuntide over the 5-day period the Fishbourne car ferry brought a total of 454 cars, motorcycles and motorcycle combinations across to the island, 226 of these transported on the Saturday. Over a 3-day period, the Portsmouth to Ryde passenger boats carried 54,400 passengers in the same direction. Plans were announced to close the Merston to Ventnor railway line. A spokesman for the Rail Authority said in the summer the average number of passengers per train journey numbered just 22, with this reducing to 8 in the winter months. The decision to suspend the train service between Bembridge and Brading until further notice also met with complaints from all sides. Later in the year, plans were announced by the railways executive that the whole of the island railway system was under consideration for closing down.
At the annual dinner of the Shankling Conservative Club, Sir Peter MacDonald, the prospective MP for the island, stated there was a time when he used to pity the poor Africans, but he now thought they were better off than we were as regards the availability of food. He criticised the miners, whom he said were now getting more pay and doing less work. I doubt he had ever been down a coal mine in his life, and later lived many years longer than those who eventually died early with their lungs destroyed by coal dust. Council house tenants in Ryde had their rents fixed with a two-bedroom house costing 14 shillings and fourpence a week, and a 4-bedroom house costing 18 shillings and sixpence. The application for an increase in island bus fares came in for criticism before a hearing of the Licensing Authority for Public Transport in Newport. Mr. Baines raised the question of the proposal to increase the cost of a weekly return ticket from Newport to Cowes from 3 shillings to 5 shillings and threepence. For the bus company, Mr. Downey stated the increase was less than the price of a packet of cigarettes. The weekly return from Yarmouth to Newport was proposed to be increased from 6 shillings to 10 shillings and threepence. It was resolved the journey from Cowes to Ryde via Newport would cost 11 pence single and 1 6 return. Newport to Cowes was set at 7 pence single and 1 shilling return, and a sum equivalent today to 5p. 9 Acres School in Newport opened after being built for a total cost of £38,000. Two Borstal boys who escaped from Camp Hill were arrested in Cowes. By then, however, they'd already broken into a co-op shop and stolen a complete change of clothes, as well as taking £2 from Cowes Golf Club. Oh dear. An aeroplane was forced down at Ashy after developing engine trouble. The Firefly machine came down in a field, crashed through a hedge and killed a cow before coming to a halt under a large tree. Neither of the tube passengers were seriously injured. In August, Yarmouth suffered an enormous hold-up of traffic where hundreds of motorists poured into the town en route for the mainland, only to find the car ferry, Farringford, had developed engine trouble and had been taken out of service. The other car ferry, Lymington, battled in one of the worst gales of the summer to relieve the congestion, but her capacity was just 16 cars compared to her sister ship's 36. Just to highlight the fact that disasters did happen, the submarine Affray submerged off the Isle of Wight and failed to resurface. She had on board a crew of 75, all of whom perished. After hearing that, the price of bus fares seemed rather unimportant.
And my view, this week's columnist is Catherine James. Clothes maketh the man, or the dog. When was the last time you saw a naked dog? Sure, most dogs wear a collar of some sort. Otherwise, where are their owners going to affix their pet's lead, enabling them to jerk the animal's head away from an aromatic lamppost or another dog's bottom? I'm talking about harnesses, bejewelled chokers, neckerchiefs and coats. Last week I read there are apparently more clothing lines for dogs than disabled people. Even dog fancy dress is an actual thing, and this is ignominy is not just for Christmas. It's a good job that dogs are dignity-free zone, otherwise their owners would never be able to squeeze their fun babies into doggy Halloween costumes or bonnets with antlers. The latest trend in dog fashion seems to be the declaration jacket. You recall that Zara's khaki parks, worn by clown consort Melanie Trump, when she recently visited an American migrant children camp. The one with, "I really don't care, do you?" daubed on the back. Well, I saw a dog in a similar coat in Newport the other day, although rather than a breathtakingly callous statement, which the First Lady's case we're supposed to believe was just entirely unintended, it just said, "anxious." I'm no dog behaviourist, but I'm sure that even the most retarded dog demonstrates the occasional nuanced behaviour beyond eating, barking and pooing. But anxious? Who really knows? Is this the dog's actual temperament, or does the attribution say more about the person at the other end of the lead? Firing up Google reveals there are many branded dog coats available. They are colour-coded, depending on how the dog is to be represented. Our anxious doggy was in a yellow jacket, which I suppose could double for cowardly or incontinent. Friendly is green. I'm sure you get the idea. Each caption is created with durable embroidered text that is there for life and constructed from thick polypropylene webbing that is strong enough to pull a car, in inverted commas. Presumably the hound that wears this coat is hench. Other available dog jackets include caution, do not feed and blind dog, which I sincerely hope is a description, not an instruction. Taking this idea a step further, if you were to have a garment displaying your temperament or other description, what would you say? I can think of several people who might benefit from do not feed, and having read Matthew Chatfield's last column about islanders' propensity to complain, it would seem that an awful lot of locals could be branded miserable, whining tightwad. Perhaps someone you know in Seaview is entitled, or if they are from Wroxall, perhaps maybe insular or webbed. I can picture a range of emblazoned T-shirts. Proud Corkheads who go back generations can be indigenous. There are plenty of residents who are locally famous. The members of East Cowes Massive probably describe themselves as Peng. Look it up, Grandad. And there are many on the electoral roll who are confused or bigoted. And what would my jacket say?
There is an article by Jim Gibbons. This is also from My View. The headline is Those Wonderful Misunderstandings. Do you know what a mondegreen is, or a missile? The word mondegreen was coined by Sylvia Wright to denote a phenomenon we've all encountered. As a child, she had frequently heard the words, "laid him on the green," as part of a poem, but her brain interpreted it as Lady Mondegreen. Popular song lyrics are frequently misheard. All of the other reindeer easily becomes Olive the other reindeer. Other than Rudolph, that is. What could be more reasonable? The Beatles line, "All my loving I'll send to you," makes even better sense as "all my luggage." A woman of my acquaintance was convinced a line of a Neil Diamond song included the words "the Reverend Blue Jeans," and her colleagues were split on whether to leave her in happy ignorance or put her wise, and decided it was kinder to do the latter. But when told, she flatly refused to believe it was "forever in blue jeans." Hymns and prayers are a rich field for this type of misconception, particularly among children. "Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name," must have had the saints rolling in the aisles. "Gladly my cross I'd bear" morphs easily into "gladly my cross I'd bear" for any child who has a teddy. Missiles is a concept sweeping through the Twitter sphere, I believe. I don't twit myself, but I know someone who does. It derives from misled, being pronounced as mizzled, and means a word mispronounced through one's having become acquainted with it through print and not speech. People such as myself, who've acquired most of their knowledge through reading, are very prone to it. One of my very own is the word Ori, which to me was obviously spoken as Ori. And for some reason, women's names are a fruitful minefield, which must be a mixed metaphor, if nothing worse. Many of us must have read Amy as Amy, Hermione as Hermione, and Daphne as Daphne. What? And why does Penelope demand 4 syllables, while the near identical envelope satisfies itself with 3? Malapropisms have a long history. Just using a similar word to the one you are looking for can distract or amuse the listener. It's a dog-eat-dog world. His advice fell on deaf ears. His advice fell on deaf ears. Are you planning to abseil across the English Channel? We cannot let terrorists hold this nation hostile. Well, us oldies have noticed with some regret common English words are now being pronounced in the American manner. Harass being pronounced harass. Homage being spoken in the French of our American manner, homage. And so we go on. When I was young and I was becoming acquainted with the language, I pointed up to a chimney on the roof and said, "What's that called?" The helpful adult by my side followed my gaze and said, "Oh, that's called a cloud." Well, there we are. That's the end of these misunderstandings for today.
Right. And this week's Behind the News. It's time for the Isle of Wight to get its fair share of funding, and this is by Imogen Tew. Being MP for the island is tantamount to being married to the right person for Bob Seeley. Representing the island in Westminster is his dream job and the perfect fit. For me at least, he adds hurriedly, as he shows me the gold-plated and smaller than I'd imagined House of Lords. Despite representing the same political party, Mr Seeley is a stark difference in both style and substance from the island's former MP, Mr Andrew Turner, who resigned from office in 2017 after describing LGBT people as dangerous to society. Turner's voting record shows votes against gay rights, and he came out in favour of the death penalty. Mr Seeley was in the crowd at last year's Pride. During his first year in office, Seeley's numerous suggestions for the Isle of Wight have ranged from housing and education to train lines and national parks, from unrealistic to exciting. Some like his idea for building affordable housing on top of stores such as Morrison's and Marks and Spencer's that might seem a little far-fetched. Turning the island into a national park, making the most of our rich cultural and artistic history, and getting fair funding, however, truly tap into what the island could become. The Isle of Wight should have been Britain's first national park, he states. There's two bases for being a national park. Be good looking and have lots of recreational activities. We're bloody good looking and having a ton of things to do and see. We have dinosaur bones and lowland southern heathland. We have estuaries like Devon's rolling landscape, like Dorset's, a field system like Sussex. We are England in a nutshell. Mr Seeley sees the island as a golden opportunity for quirky start-up companies. We're never going to have a scene like Soho or Manchester's Canal Street, and if you want that, then the island is never going to be the right place for you. But if you like cycling, sailing, surfing, riding or walking, then it is probably the best place for you. We want to tempt businesses heading to Brighton to head to Cowes instead.
The island has a rich art and literary history, which places such as Dimbola Lodge and events such as the Literary Festival champion. But Mr Seeley seems utterly baffled and a little frustrated. More national art and history establishments are not interested. The Undercliff and Cornwall, the most painted places of Britain. And who got Tate? St Ives, 250,000 visitors per year and £12 million to the local economy. Did we get that for the Undercliff? Did we hell? What's the best place to have a satellite museum of the Natural History Museum? It's Sandown, where the dinosaurs are. Where should we have a mini Victoria and Albert Museum? It's where they lived. The Lake District, one poet, 24 million visits per year. We have dozens of poets and painters and we get 2 million. A key success of Mr Seeley's first year is the creation of an all-party parliamentary group with MPs from other UK islands to get their fair funding for the Isle of Wight. The government has accepted in principle the fair funding formula, a system which allocates levels of funding depending on need. Doesn't work for the island. I'm getting the facts and these are the figures. This is why it's not working for the island and this is why we need an island deal. Mr Seeley's next step is to get us priority funding, which recognises the economic struggles we face because we're an island. Scottish islands get more money. Anglesey gets a bridge. It's time for the Isle of Isle of Wight to get their fair share. We need a tunnel, I hear the fixed linkers shout. Some think many of the island's problems could be minimised with easy access to mainland facilities, schools, hospitals and shops, and businesses would be enticed to set up shop here on the Isle. Mr. Seeley disagrees. The idea of fixed links solves everything is rubbish. You're not going to get to Southampton and Portsmouth any quicker because it'll bypass those and be nearer London. So it will only help down from Londons visiting their third homes. If someone has £3 billion for a link, we can talk about it. Until then, I have to focus on stuff which is achievable and fix the reason we need a link in the first place. No matter what your political stance, Mr. Seeley has bold, ambitious and good ideas for the island. You could have caught him working behind the Kashmir Cafe at the Isle of Wight Festival, and he'll be swimming the Solent from West Wight Sports Centre in August. His manifesto, released this weekend on islandvision.uk, includes genuinely affordable housing for islanders while keeping our green spaces, raising education standards and having fewer but better sixth forms and a campus, improving the integration of health and social care, developing public transport and digital infrastructure, encouraging ferry firms to support the island better, and developing high-quality tourism across the island. Great ideas, most would agree, but let's see how far we've got by the next election.
And some news from this week's county press. Treat for fans of cello music. Award-winning young cellist Charlotte Walker has performed alongside pianist Sally Halsey in a special concert. The musicians are uniting to play at St Catherine's Church, Ventnor, on Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Charlotte will play Bach's D minor suite for solo cello in number 2, and the duo will perform 3 other major works for cello and piano. Sally, who grew up in Bond Church, attended Medina High School and Peter Symonds Sixth Form College in Winchester before going to Music College in London. She was awarded an inaugural West Wight Arts Bursary. Her summer work includes being the official accompanist of a Boyne Cello Festival in Scotland. Charlotte Walker is a student at the Royal Northern College of Music in Manchester. She is a Boyne Cellist Festival Young Artist of 2018. Tickets for the concert are £8, children free, and available on the door. To reserve a seat, phone 852 201. 852 201. Right, and that's the end of our reading of news today. Goodbye from Leicester.
And goodbye from Sarah.
This is the BBC.
This is In Touch, the magazine programme for people like me who are blind or partially sighted. I'm Peter Wight. Thanks for downloading this week's edition. Tonight, visually impaired benefit claimants of the future could be entitled to less money. And the astronomer who wants us to feel the universe.
It was one of the pictures of Neptune that the Voyager 2 probe sent back. And it was just the most beautiful sort of striking blue colour. And it was so blue that I could see it.
More from Dr. Nicholas Bonn later in the programme. But first, visually impaired people claiming benefits for the first time are increasingly likely to find themselves on universal credit. That's a government reform which it says will make welfare simpler and fairer. But a report just out from the sight loss charity Thomas Pocklington Trust says some new claimants could be substantially poorer than their predecessors. Universal credit combines 6 benefits into one, including ESA or Employment and Support Allowance. That's for those finding it difficult to find work due to their disability. The credit system is intended to make it easier to move between welfare and work without big fluctuations in your income. But the report claims that stopping disability premiums, which compensate for the added costs of being disabled, could lead to lower benefits for some people in the future. Jeff Phimister is a benefits consultant to the Trust.
In most scenarios, disabled people will be worse off under the new system than they would have been under the old system. How much worse off depends on their particular situation, what benefits and combination of benefits they're on, what their household structure is, etc.
But can you give us the potential areas that you think there's a risk of this happening?
Universal credit is structured differently to the old benefits, so it's not straightforward. But the premiums, the disability premium, severe disability premium, enhanced disability premium, they're all going on the whole. And the other factor is one that's already come into play, which is the addition that you used to get if you were in the employment support allowance work-related activity group. There was an addition of £29 a week, which was abolished for new claims in April 2017, and that carries through into universal credit. And if you put the two together, like say you've got somebody who claimed universal credit since April 2017, they would have got the severe disability premium and they're not going to get it now, and they're living alone, that person would be over £90 a week worse off under the new system than they would under the old system.
Would it be fair to say you are taking a worst case scenario?
Oh yes, as I say, it's a very, very varied situation depending on people's individual circumstances.
Now, we have stressed that the changes apply to new claimants. We did ask to talk to a minister from the Department for Work and Pensions. None was available, but they did tell us they will be protecting people who receive severe disability premium. They say they can keep that when they're moved on to universal credit, and they'll make additional payments to people on universal credit who previously got the severe disability premium. That suggests that existing claimants' incomes will be protected.
This is people moving from the legacy benefits, that's the benefits that are feeding into universal credit. Now, the government has said all along that they will have transitional protection when the new system rolls out, which means that they'll continue to get their old benefit rate until the new benefit rate eventually overtakes it. Now, there are problems with that because you can quite easily lose that protection if you have a change of circumstances once you're in the new system, such as a new partner, or you lose a partner.
Well, in another report, it's stated that other state benefits, such as personal independence payments, don't fully cover the added costs of visual impairment. Catherine Hill of the Centre for Research and Social Policy at Loughborough University is one of the authors of that report, which was commissioned by the Pocklington Trust. So what exactly does your report say about people's situation as far as their incomes are concerned?
What we found was that people prioritising their basic needs, but people who are visually impaired do have extra costs of living, and there are other needs that they find it harder to meet.
So what sort of things are people doing without? What did you find?
Some things, for example, are very important, like social participation, so getting out and about, meeting other people. It's really important for people's well-being, especially as the research we did, we were speaking to people who were living alone. But this can be hard because it can require extra costs, for example, of having taxis or support with getting out and about.
That is surely what personal independence payment is supposed to do, and isn't the government reasonably entitled to say, that's what it is, and blind and partially sighted people have done reasonably well under the change from disability living allowance to PIPs?
Perhaps, but the people we spoke to, particularly working age people, felt that they were using some of their payments for basic living needs, so there was less available to pay for these other things.
A lot of the solutions people are told about now on this programme, amongst other places, is the amount of technology there is about. Did people talk about that to you?
Yes, that was really important to some people. So, for example, where somebody who had been, say, given a laptop, they were teaching themselves to type, but they needed the software, and the accessible software to go with it was very expensive. She wasn't able to afford that. She talked about feeling left behind
Jeff Phimister, just finally to bring us back to the issue of specific benefits, what are you asking the government to do? The National Audit Office, which recently produced a highly critical report about the way universal credit was being introduced, still saw no alternative to carrying on with it. They thought that was the only thing to do. So what should they do?
Very specifically on universal credit, we'd like to see some work done to put back the elements that have gone, or something like them. We also think transitional protection should itself be protected so that people don't easily lose it once they're receiving it. So these are all things that we would urge on ministers based on this sort of research.
That was benefits consultant Jeff Phimister and Catherine Hill from Loughborough University. Now, there was a time when one Wight cane was very much like another, but we've seen increased variations in their length, the material used and the addition of a roller on the tip so that you could push it as well as swing it. Well, Cathy Gulliver is a visually impaired nurse and she uses one, but it's becoming a bit of a pain. She told me where.
Golfer's elbow is basically inflammation of the bicep tendons and ligaments. In particular, I've noticed it when I've been using my roller cane when one has to sweep in the outwards movement. You can really notice it in your hand and your elbow and even your shoulder because the roller ball bounces or it will stick in a crack in the pavement. You get very much a jarring effect in your whole arm. But I just wonder if other people suffer from it and how they cope with it.
So, who better to offer some advice than a blind physiotherapist who has used a roller cane? A tall order? We found one. Mike Cassidy has just retired after a lifetime in the job.
It may be that she's sweeping too far out to the right. And if she's shortened the sweep to the right, it may decrease the problem a little.
And what are the most vulnerable parts in your arm, if you can give us perhaps a picture of what might be happening there?
The inside of the elbow where these tendons attach is one area. I think the wrist can be, the shoulder can be. And as I say, the whole of the upper limb really is vulnerable because as one uses these canes over a period of time, your right-hand shoulder blade will tend to be held forward. So the muscles that control the shoulder blade in front will tend to be shortened. Those at the back will tend to have lengthened. So your whole upper limb symmetry has gone up the creek.
So, I mean, Cathy is seeing her own physio, but generally speaking, any particular tips that you might give?
Yeah, I would advise her to shorten the sweep to the outside. The other thing she could try is to slide the cane so that a portion of the handle part of the cane is resting on her forearm rather than the full extent stretching out in front of her. That would unload the arm a bit and so, as it were, take the weight off it. She may find that a bit sort of hazardous because then any obstacle she encounters with the cane will be closer to her. But a lighter cane would help her, I should think, if there is one about.
Physiotherapist Mike Cassidy. Further tips for Cathy Gulliver? Welcome. Now, getting your head round the universe, its size, its shape, is a pretty tough call for anyone. But as a totally blind person myself, these are concepts I really struggle with. But Dr. Nicholas Bonn thinks he's found a way to help. And who better? He was born with a very small amount of vision himself. But he's a senior astronomer at Portsmouth University's Institute of Cosmology and Gravitation, where he's leading a project called the Tactile Universe. It gives an idea of the light coming from stars and galaxies by using special models for blind children in 2 Hampshire schools. He began by explaining how he conveys to them the sheer scale of space.
So the distances are obviously pretty vast, and even for a fully sighted person, that's not the easiest thing to understand. What we've found, though, is if we can break things down, so start off with really small, relatable distances like how long it takes you to walk from your home to your local store, then we can talk about how long it would take you to walk from one end of the UK to the other. And we can talk about the size of the Earth, the distance between the Earth and the Moon, the distance between the Earth and the Sun. Just keep scaling that up until we hit galactic sizes, which are obviously much, much larger.
So that's as much about talking about it as it is about finding something to touch, really.
Absolutely. So where the tactile aspect comes in is more to do with interpreting the light. When someone with a bit of vision looks at an image of a galaxy, say, they see parts of that object that are brighter, that are dimmer, and that's kind of how their eyes interpret the shape of that. So the way the models work is we basically take the pixels that make up these images and we scale them based on how bright they are. So if you imagine the picture lying flat on a table, if the pixel is the brightest pixel in that image, it'll be raised up above that picture. So we did a lot of tests with members of the vision impaired community around Portsmouth to try and work out what the best height would be. We ended up choosing at around about 3 millimeters. So these things aren't particularly high, but your fingertips are really sensitive, so you can feel the change in height. If it's a really dark pixel, so close to black, it'll sit flush with that image lying on the table. And then all the other shades of grey for those pixels sort of scale in between. So you almost end up with a relief map of that galaxy. But when you run your hand over the top of that, when you feel it with your fingertips, you're interpreting that change in brightness just the same way that your eyes would be if you could look at the image.
So what do the children make of Dr. Bond's tactile representation of the universe? We dropped into Toynbee School in Eastleigh, Hampshire, as some of the children ran their fingers over Galaxy M51.
I'm Azam and I'm 12 years old. So what I can feel is a bulge in the centre and some drifting off stars. And there is a real contrast between the bulge and the other stars that are more off to the side. And then when you move on to the other ones, you get a different light being seen, so they're different. The stars are being at different temperatures. So with this one that I'm feeling right now, the star and the galaxies aren't as bright as some of the other ones, where their bulges are higher and the stars are more sharper.
I'm Jenna and I'm 13. So that's like kind of like a spiral shape. It's kind of like a smaller spiral and there's like more bits around it, like little like stars around it. You can kind of like tell what it looks like, how light it is.
I'm Harris, I'm 15. It's not got much going on and there's less bumps, so there's probably less stars in this galaxy. It's interesting, it's good because we can understand what's going on, what there is, because we're just here on Earth, we can't actually understand what's going on, especially with someone who can't see anything. Tactile models really help you understand the detail of things that are out there.
It's the feeling of not knowing what's out there really and why we're here. And I feel like it's a great way to understand more about the universe and see that there's more than just what we know about life.
That's Azam, Jenna and Harris, literally reaching for the stars. But how did Nicholas Bond become fascinated enough with the universe to turn it into a profession?
For me growing up, I don't know, about the age of 5, I think I realised that astronomy was something that I was really, really interested in. And I think in my case it helped that my parents were very supportive. My teachers were really supportive. No one ever said, but you're vision impaired, why are you doing this thing? I have a tiny, tiny bit of vision. So I think I'm sitting on something like 4 or 5% total. As long as things are right at the end of my nose, I can kind of see them. So as long as I've got my head right up against my computer monitor, as long as my text is really, the contrast is good, and as long as it's blown up really big, I can see okay. I just remember spending a long, long time looking at these beautiful images of space, but having to spend a long time and really sort of scanning over the image to get all the details. And I think it was something that I was really, really passionate about, but I think it's something that other people could be as well if they were able to.
And do you know why you were passionate? It still feels, and in a way it's interesting that with so little sight, as you said, it was something very visual like that caught your imagination.
Yeah, I don't really know. It's hard to. So the very first picture I ever remember seeing and sort of going, wow, was it was one of the pictures of Neptune that the Voyager 2 probe sent back during the 90s or late 80s. and it was just the most beautiful sort of striking blue colour. And it was so blue that I could see it. And I think I just remember thinking, wow, I've never seen anything that looks like that or that's that colour before. And then I just wanted to know more. And I think that's the thing about astronomy. There's a lot of really big questions that we still need to answer, and they don't have to be dealt with in a visual way. A lot of it is very, very conceptual. I broke a lot of very visual parameters down into numbers, sort of made really big databases, looked at the statistics of various things. So I kind of got away with that using my eyes too much. But there were parts where I had to actually double check that my galaxies were the shape that the numbers said they were. And I definitely found that a little bit more complicated. Sometimes I'd need to ask for a bit of help with that.
And is working with the children giving you the sort of buzz that you clearly hoped it would? I mean, I'm interested, what kind of things are they saying to you?
Well, I mean, it's like any cross-section of the population. So, I mean, astronomy is good in the sense that it's one of those things that a lot of people find really interesting. Same with vision-impaired kids. So some of them do, some of them don't. The ones that do are really, really enjoying it. I think they're liking the fact that they can interact with these images, this data in a different way from everyone else. It's also giving them a much better sense of stuff that they've probably heard about in class but haven't really understood particularly. And it's been really nice, actually. We've gotten feedback from sort of 2 or 3 students so far who've basically come back to us after a couple of sessions and said, hey, I'm actually thinking of doing science. Like, I don't want to stop doing science like I was thinking. I want to keep doing this. Maybe I'll do it at university.
That was Dr. Nicholas Bonn, racking up his own universal credits. Sorry, couldn't resist it. Finally, how often has this happened to you? You've been looking forward to a TV programme, you settle down to listen, and this happens.
Психологическое, физическое. Мне интересно, как это так получилось, что вы все-таки это записали?
Subtitles are on the screen, but there's no spoken translation. Well, we're planning to look into why this happens so often with senior figures in BBC Current Affairs. If you have questions you'd like to raise with them, let us have them. You can call our action line for 24 hours after tonight's programme on 0800 044 044. You can email in touch at bbc.co.uk, or you can go onto our website and click on Contact Us. You can also download tonight's and other editions of In Touch from there. That's it from me, Peter Wight, producer Kevin Core and the team. Goodbye.